Hi, and welcome to our next presentation. My name is Jacob Lemke, Equity Research Analyst here at ABG, following the healthcare space. Now I have the honor to present our next company, Biovica. And with that, I leave over the word to you, Anders Rylander.
Thank you, Jacob. About 1/3 of all people living will get cancer sometime during their lifetime. And if you look forward, for the young people living today, about 50% will get the disease. That makes cancer one of our most serious diseases with a great impact for both patient and healthcare systems. And some of the patients will also develop metastatic or advanced cancer and will be dependent on getting treatments for best possible outcome. This is the area where Biovica is committed to make a difference and improvement by offering biomarkers or biomarker assays for improved monitoring of cancer therapies. My name is Anders Rylander. I am the CEO of Biovica, and a few words about my background. I have a background as a management consultant and an entrepreneur. I worked many years for Accenture before co-founding a management consulting company, Axholmen, and came in contact with Biovica as an investor and was attracted by the great potential both for cancer patients, but also the commercial potential of the company. So today, I'm the major shareholder, but also the CEO for the company since 10 years back. Today, I'll go through shortly during these 20 minutes, our company and product, the market and our road to the market, the team, and I'll summarize and disclose our upcoming milestones as well. If we start with the product, DiviTum stands for dividing tumor, which is an indication of what we're doing. We're measuring cell proliferation. And as you might know, cancer is defined by uncontrolled cell proliferation. So by our product, we can provide very important information about the disease, about the aggressiveness of the disease, but also during treatment, provide feedback if the treatment is effective or not, which of course is very important both for the patient, but also for the treating physician and for healthcare providers. These treatments are priced at over $10,000 per patient and month in the US for metastatic breast cancer treatments, which is our initial focus area. So it has, of course, a big economic impact, and you want to make sure that you get best possible effectiveness of the treatment for those money spent. But also, since there are other options, there are many treatment options, and if you can discover quickly if a patient doesn't respond or not, you can replace it with an alternate treatment and possibly get an effective treatment for the patient. Currently, the standard method being used for monitoring the treatment in this area is image diagnostics. And that will require 3 to 4 months before you can compare tumor size in the beginning of the treatment and during treatment and can draw a conclusion if the treatment is effective or not. With DiviTum, we've shown both that the baseline test before start of treatment and the treatment already as soon as 2 weeks after start of treatment provides very important information. And in a trial performed by Washington University, it was discovered that the mean time for discovering progression was 83 days ahead of when it was discovered by imaging. So we can really offer something that is more convenient, but also provides quicker feedback, which is important for the patient and the healthcare providers. Talking about other technologies, imaging, I mentioned, is the standard method, and as I explained, we have advantages when it comes to follow-up time, but also patient logistics. Imaging is invasive, which you want to avoid, so several advantages in the monitoring area. There are other proliferation marker used, and one is Ki-67 that is captured by biopsies, where you analyze a part of the tumor. And that gives very important information, but it's not convenient to use when monitoring patients within the metastatic setting. So a blood-based method like ours has its advantages here as well. And there are other blood-based markers available, but not any that has established themselves as standard markers within monitoring. CA15-3, for instance, within breast cancer is being used, but not as a standard marker because it has shortcomings, both when it comes to precision, but also because not all patients express this antigen that's being measured. And there are new, very exciting technologies like CTCs, ctDNAs, but they have focused in other areas like diagnosis of cancer and prediction of treatments. So when you sum it up, we found a very important area where we can, with an unmet need that we can meet, where their competition isn't that fierce. There are no really good products out there, and we can meet this important unmet need and provide value for both patients and healthcare providers. So how do we do that? What's our action plan? Here on this slide, we have our key activities summarized in order to commercialize the product. And this is something that we have been working in for years. It starts with, of course, developing a product. We have developed our product Divitum now in the third version, which has specifically been designed and developed for meeting the requirements that the FDA, the US regulatory authority, sets out. And that product has been validated and is ready to be used in the clinical setting. Based on that product, we've done clinical development, that is, performed clinical trials with patients to document the value of the product. A regulatory pathway, that's to get the approval so you're allowed to market the product and for clinical use. And the most important path is to the US market, where the FDA is the authority that has defined a so-called 510(k) process, which I'll come back to. We're in the middle of that. The results, it's also important to get into guidelines and to get into reimbursement, so you get paid for your product. And so the data that we have developed fills that purpose as well. And the last two is more commercial. You need a lab to be able to analyze, provide the test as a service to the customers, and of course to have a team that can bring this to market and launch it with a sales organization that's complementary to the partner. And we also are working to establish that, and I'll come back to that. And that's the ambition, to lead to the clinical use and the uptake of the product, and to realize the great market potential of the product. To dive into a little bit about the clinical development and the results so far. To date, we have 24 published and peer-reviewed articles with our product. And these are published in scientific journals and that has foregone a peer review where other experts in the field has challenged the results, and this gives a solid foundation for the performance and the value of the product. The majority of these articles, the results are within our key focus area, breast cancer, but we also have successful clinical trials within other areas like gastrointestinal and lung cancer area, for example. If you should summarize the results, you can say that the results show that the test is prognostic, and in the early setting, prognostic for recurrence, and in the later phases, prognostic for progression, but also for overall survival. And when we have had the possibility to evaluate serial samples and follow the patients and monitor the treatment, we also shown that we can provide early feedback on treatment efficacy. So the results in itself are very important to us, but it's also important who we have collaborated with. And we have done that with some of the leading names in this field. And for example, in US, we worked with the Mayo Clinic. We're now into our third trial together with them. We worked with Washington University. We're about to do, we have a trial ongoing with Johns Hopkins, for instance, and Dana-Farber. All those have great credibility, and it's important that they communicate the results to get the impact. In Europe, it all started with Karolinska. Also together with them, we're doing our third trial. And within the European countries, there are breast cancer groups like BIG and IBCSG. We've done a prospective trial with them, which were successful, which also opens up doors for us on the European market. So this is really the foundation for all our commercialization activities. And here's a summary within the breast cancer area. And I won't go into detail, but you can see that the focus area is within metastatic breast cancer, where we think we have an unmet need that we can meet with our product. It fits very well, and we can add value for patients. But there are also opportunities to expand into earlier phases, and the next step would be locally advanced, where we also are starting to build our evidence, and we actually have positive results from earlier phases as well. And it's the same results within the breast cancer area as within other areas on this previous slide. And also the comment that we can discover progression 83 days earlier than imaging on average in median. So that's, of course, a very important finding for our product. And here's the ongoing trials based on this. We have designed additional trial to get exactly the data required to get into reimbursement, to guidelines, and to generate demand for the product. And one example is the impact trial that builds on this data from the WashU trial with that we can discover progression earlier. And so that's a trial where we are trying to repeat that results and follow the patient with several samples taking over some time to get a very solid data within that area. We also since we now have multiple trials within the same or similar areas, we can starting to see patterns which strengthen, of course, the evidence further. Here's one example. One is the Biovica trial, which is prospective trials, which was initiated by Novartis, almost 300 patients. And the other one is Pythia with those two breast cancer groups. Slightly different. Biovica was first line, Pythia was second line. Biovica was on the Novartis CDK4/6 inhibitor, a treatment within metastatic breast cancer. And Pythia was with Pfizer's very similar product. So different products, different lines of treatment, but the results are the same. Patients were divided here into three groups. The red line, where levels were kept high, didn't drop much during treatment. They didn't respond well at all, so they should probably, as soon as possible, get an alternative treatment. The best group was the blue group that was kept low during this trial, and they responded very well. And the yellow group is the one that during the periods when the treatment was paused, you can see a slight increase, which provides very interesting information. One is that we have a very dynamic biomarker that reacts fast. And another one is that these patients could possibly benefit from a different dosing. So this is the kind of conclusions you can get from these clinical trials that can be translated into better monitoring of these patients. Currently, we have the San Antonio Breast Cancer Conference. That's an important one because it's the biggest, largest breast conference in the world. It's where you present the news. And this year, we have 3 posters being presented. One is the PROMISE study with Mayo Clinic. It's an update from last year. It's just more patients, but the results remain. And another one is the budget impact model. It's not only enough, of course, to have the clinical results. You have to translate them into financial impact. And we've done that based on the results so far from our clinical trials. And that shows that we can positively affect both monitoring costs, but also futile therapy costs. for every dollar spent on DiviTum, you will get $3 in savings. So that's of course important when discussing with the payers and reimbursement in getting to reimbursement systems. And the last one being presenting this on this conference, which is currently ongoing, is the collaboration we have with Carrick. And that's another area with great potential to collaborate with pharma to improve the process of bringing new therapies to market. In this case, it's a second generation CDK inhibitor. It's not 4/6, it's a different combination. And Carrick has seen advantages by using our biomarker assay as complementary to their product. And we're great to see this result, and we can see that more pharma companies are looking to do that, and that offers opportunity for us to bring new products to the market and to co-develop new products together with pharma. So that's an interesting area for us for the future. I talked briefly about the FDA process. This is something that we've been discussing with the FDA for several years. In September last year, we submitted our application. We quickly passed the two first milestones, went into the review before the FDA made a change in how they prioritize their resources and put basically all their resources within COVID testing assays. So our application was paused, but it was restarted pretty early. So we were very hopeful. However, this has been a challenge for the FDA. The COVID test, this group that both has reviewed COVID tests, but also other IVDs where we, the category we fall into, has been really challenged when it comes to resources. So it wasn't until May that we got the first feedback, and we've since then worked with the FDA to sort out all the open questions. We feel very confident that we have responded to all the questions that they have raised, and we have good answers to those questions. But we're still waiting for their response to how we responded to these questions. And that's an important formality because the FDA have asked us to wait for that input before we submit our updated application. We were supposed to have that feedback during November. It didn't happen, but now we see that we are getting partial input from them. So we're looking positive on this process. And we also feel that the discussion with them is with a common incentive, a common goal that we should have the product 510(k) cleared. So that's good, but of course it's frustrating with some delay in this process. In the meantime, we're planning for our US launch, and our focus is to, together with a partner, build a sales organization to focus on the so-called NC designated cancer centers. We already have collaborations with several of them on the clinical trial area. So we already have relationships to several of these hospitals. And the labs that we are looking to collaborate are the specialty labs within the oncology field, which has sales organization and the capability to analyze our assay. And within the payer area, we also have a plan to start with the so-called early adopters and develop it from there with the data that we have developed, and we have initiated the discussion with payer advisory boards, etc. Market potential. Well, we have broken it down to 3 key markets. The first one being the US market, where we have done several market research analysis and interviewed both payers and oncologists for the value of the product that translate to the price level, and also the frequency of testing from the oncologist, and those two together with the number of patients living with the disease make up for this market potential numbers. A lot of the efforts made in US, we expect to be able to reuse in Europe. About the same number of patients, but slightly lower pricing make up for a slightly lower market potential. And the third market is the Japanese market, which we're also looking into. Breast cancer is the first area we look into. We have already started to do proof of concept and look into others. We've done an analysis and identified the metastatic melanoma, the small cell lung cancer, and prostate cancer, metastatic prostate cancer as interesting areas to widen the use, because we see the same kind of challenges and an unmet need that we can address with our product. And that would, of course, add the market potential further to the market potential identified within the breast cancer area. And outside of these areas, we have the pharma collaboration that can lead to new products and through co-finance development with pharma, which is really interesting. And that's why the CARIC initiative that was presented now, the first one that's official, is very, very exciting as well. So in order to do this, you have to put a strong team together that covers all these specialty areas, which we have done. A team with great experience with doing similar projects before. And an important part of it is to also staff the US part of the team. And we have 3 people currently in US, and we're building an organization over there for the initial launch on the US market. And the same thing goes with our board of directors. A long experience within this field. Lars, being the chairman, was the CEO of Dacco, for instance, when they were able to develop the company, and it was acquired by Agilent in a big deal. So he has an experience of doing this before, and several of the other board of directors members has so as well. To sum it up, so we have a really unique and exciting product that can meet an unmet need for improved monitoring within metastatic cancer, starting with the breast cancer area. And we have collaborations with some of the leading key opinion leaders within this field, and together with them, we have some outstanding data from the clinical trial, which is the foundation for our commercial activities. And currently, the upcoming milestone is the 510(k) clearance. We were expecting to have it by end of this year. It has been slightly delayed, but we expect to get feedback from FDA soon, so we can get that clearance. And soon after that, we will have the launch in US. And following that, that will be a launch on selected market in Europe. So we have exciting times ahead.
Okay, thank you for the presentation, Anders. I think we have time for a couple of questions.
Thank you.
And if we start maybe with the sort of FDA process, as you said, it's mostly out of your hands, and you've sort of had a quite bad timing. But maybe if we look sort of ahead and not sort of think about...
One thing that I didn't say, to put this a little bit in perspective, is that it's frustrating to wait for their feedback. But if you zoom out a little bit, I think we should be grateful, because our process was restarted, was one of the first, actually, so it could be a lot worse for the ones further back in line, so to speak. So that's positive. Another positive thing is that we have, after the process during the summer, where we gather all their specialists into one meeting and address most of the questions, so there are very few now outstanding. The feedback was that, since there's just a few questions outstanding, let's go into the interactive process. And the advantage, in theory at least, is that you get quick feedback and you sort out the big open questions before you submit the updated application. And that way you save time in their review afterwards. So it's a positive process in that setting, and that they also believe that there's few outstanding questions. But you have to respect, I guess, that there's a pandemic situation ongoing, and they have been really, really pressured by the over 500 COVID test application that they have received. So that's basically the situation.
And I guess you can't really, know when the FDA will proceed, but let's say once
that's true, and that's why we've been a bit careful by committing to dates. But I still expect we were supposed to get feedback by November. Didn't happen, but now we see we got part of that feedback. We got an informal feedback all along, so we know what to expect, and we believe we can address those questions. But it's important to get the formal feedback, and so we can respond formally, and we'll make a PR so all in people following our company know exactly where we are.
And once you get the approval, which I think we all expect you're going to get. Where are you in terms of commercial readiness and sort of?
So we have to. We realized that this was difficult to forecast already beginning of this year. So our plans of staffing up the sales organization, the market access, and a small but a team of about 10 people in US required for the launch. We put that a little bit on hold, but we in parallel have worked, so we have identified candidates, and we will probably recruit additional resources, managers that then can build the sales organization and so on. So we're in preparation mode. We are prepared a lot. We're ready to push the bottom to hire and establish that sales organization. And same thing with our commercial partnering. We are in discussion on the lab side also to get that in place. So we're late preparations for launch, and of course it will require a couple of months from an approval until we have everything in place, but it shouldn't be so much more than that.
And just a quick final question on the you mentioned the Biovica trial and these sort of treatment patterns. Sort of, what can this sort of information? What sort of benefit can it bring to the stakeholders, the patients, the hospitals, the payers? In your view,
what's interesting here is that they could identify 3 groups that if you remember that slide, where you can act. You can act on that data. So the red group that doesn't really respond at all, or very poorly, you could quickly identify that and find an alternative treatment, because within the breast cancer area there's a lot of options, and so they could get a better outcome probably by doing so. And the other end is easy to identify. They seem to respond super well. You couldn't. When they closed the trial, they still were responding. So that group is also easy. But maybe the most interesting one is that when you can make adjustments during trial, because you can see that during this washout period they respond. Maybe we can do something with dosing and stuff like that. And so that is something that the Washington WashU in St. Louis that we have worked with have picked up, and they're doing a palbo dosing trial that was presented last year on San Antonio. So it's going to be really interesting to see those results. But and that's the kind of result that we need, because we would like the oncologists to be able to act on the different outcome of our assay, and then you need clinical data supporting that. So that's important in that process.
Okay, interesting. I think we're out of time here, so I would like to thank you for presenting and participating in the Q&A, and I would also like to thank everyone watching in the audience.
Thank you, Jacob.